Nemesis Retaliation is a truly epic semi-cooperative action combat adventure dungeon crawler on an abandoned space station. As you explore, you'll find aliens oozing out of every crack. You'll blast away at them, complete your objective, then leg it out of there before the swarm overwhelms you. But all is not as it seems, as players are given a choice of objectives, one being the publicly assigned co-op group task, and one perhaps being a little more selfish one, like merely ensuring you escape with an alien egg specimen. To hell with everyone else, or that the highest ranking officer absolutely does not make it out of the mission alive. But that's only for you to know until it comes time to check who's won, and you don't need to choose until you're sure. As a quick disclaimer, this is the Kickstarter edition of the game with pre-shaded miniatures. I also have a scenery pack added for various bits, though honestly it doesn't add much. I did add a support character pack as well as contractors for more character options. But other than that, it's a mostly core game experience that I've had so far. I haven't tried the story mode or other intruder races yet, so I won't comment on those, but know that there are alternative alien races too. I'll also add that Nemesis is completely new to me, so I can't reference the previous games. And if you're in a similar situation to me, don't feel like you can't just jump into the third installment of this game. It stands alone and is brilliant in its own right. And if it's not already obvious, I absolutely love this. Nemesis Retaliation is one of those games that you'll be talking about long after you've finished playing, the next day at work, recounting your dramatic tales of how it all played out. My wife was working one night, so we did a 3-player game. And maybe this is a bit cringe, but I found myself taking photos and messaging her about what happened like it was some D&D session I didn't want her to miss out on. It was just that dramatic. Every game without fail will culminate in these tense moments of sheer panic. So look, let's do a quick rules overview. Not everything, it is quite complex. So how does it play though? Each character has a deck of 10 action cards. They're going to draw 5 per round, and each turn you'll do 2 actions, with every action costing some amount of cards to do. So basic things like moving noisily through a corridor, running through the corridor, using an item, shooting, securing the room is going to cost you 1 card. More complex interactions like operating the room that you're in or moving quietly, that costs 2 cards. Or of course you can perform one of the special actions listed on your card, some of which will also require extra cards to be discarded. This one, search, so you get an item from the room. Or chain of command, tell someone else to do something. Now you may end up playing 2 or 3 turns depending on how cautiously you act. And one thing to keep in mind is that passing to signify the end of your round is also an action in and of itself. And if the only thing you can do on your turn is pass, you still need to do your end of turn sequence in which you lose oxygen and potentially health if you're badly injured. Everyone's deck of action cards is half sort of standard actions, while the other half are special skills unique to that character. Shooting, recon, command skills, exploration, etc. Characters do each have specialized actions, but at the same time, they're also very situational. So you might not use them that much either, because either you need those cards to do something basic, or you just don't draw them in the round that you need them. So you keep taking turns in the round until everyone's passed because they've got no more action cards left, bearing in mind you lose oxygen every single turn if the life support isn't activated, and then the aliens get a turn to move and attack. And you draw an event card, which is usually something really bad. Now, whenever an intruder would appear, you're going to be drawing from this bag of tokens, which determines what sort of alien it is. And as the game progresses, the bag of tokens will change, and things like the Queen will become more of a threat. Now, she is absolutely brutal, so unless your objective is to kill her and you are all engaged on that goal, it's rarely worth the risk to face off against her. Just run. Take the opportunity attack that she gets on you and just run. A lot of the game is about exploration. The map isn't revealed from the start, and room placement is random according to the exploration deck and zone tiles that are also shuffled. Noise rolls are a fundamental part of the game and happen almost always. Either when you explore, the card will tell you which order to do things in, or if you're just moving normally between rooms, that also means making a noise roll, while moving cautiously doesn't. But remember, that takes more cards. The number you get corresponds to the corridors around the room you move to, and if the number matches, you either place a noise token where there isn't one, or you're going to draw an intruder token to see what's spawned. There's also a special intruder symbol on the dice, and that means one just drops straight from the ceiling and attacks you immediately. Shooting at intruders is probably the hardest part of the rules to get your head around, at least for me it was. There's two types of attack. The first is where you burst your gun into the corridor. You use half of your ammo clip and you just pour shots at anything and everything moving. Your burst dice equates to a number of hits, so 1 hit will kill an adult, 2 for the big guys, and however many the queen can take. It's easy enough, but it uses ammo, so it's limited. And that's the only way you can attack into a corridor, apart from grenades as well, which are basically the same thing. You burst and then you add a bonus. On the other hand, you can't burst in a room. So if the intruder is in the room with you already, you do a standard shoot action, which doesn't normally use ammo. It's a more careful sort of single aimed shot. But if you roll the ammo symbol, you fluffed it up and you spent more ammo than you meant to, so you miss. Shooting also damages and kills differently. So before you shoot, you assign 1 hit to your target. Immediately, yes, you've shot it, but your dice roll is to see whether you did enough damage to kill it. And you either need to roll that number of hits or less, or a headshot. So obviously, the initial shot, you've only got 1 hit on the thing, so that's pretty rare, you're going to roll that. But the more hits you do on it, the easier it becomes to kill. And your weapon might also add bonuses to that, such as if you miss the shot, immediately add another hit to it anyway. In terms of aesthetics, Retaliation oozes table presence, but it also demands table space. I have a 6x4 table here, and it barely feels big enough. There are, 10 different decks of cards? Each player needs a fair chunk of space for their dashboard, discard piles, there's a box of aliens, there's various tokens. Before I forget, I also have a playmat here. It's double-sided in case you don't want the hexes displayed, but I do find them helpful, especially for sort of not accidentally placing more corridors where they shouldn't be. So what's not to like about the game? Retaliation, and I suspect previous iterations of the game, can be brutally difficult. I mean, look, it's hard to build this sort of narrative tension without the actual threat of permadeath. So there is that, and players will likely leave the game midway through. You can even end up with a situation where one player is left playing by themselves for a few rounds at the end, either because of a forced event like a sudden Queen Awakens and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Boom, 1 round you can go from barely a scratch to, oh, I'm dead. Yes, there are ways to mitigate that, and you'll sort of learn how to avoid that sort of thing. But players can also, of course, just choose to leave the game early. Once your objective is complete, you want to escape, perhaps by getting in the 1-man and only shuttle, or there's the group lander, which all of you can fit in, but it might get shot upon arriving at the station, and whoever's in there can always choose to take off at the end of that round. There's also the hibernatorium, which you basically it's a cryogenic sleep chamber. You can get in there and be safe, but if the whole station blows up, you're going along with it. So the group lander might blow up unless someone's been smart enough to look through the tokens, which is sort of a 50-50 chance of it getting shot or not upon arrival. The thing is, by looking at the tokens, they can also choose to change the order, which means they can guarantee it'll get shot or they can guarantee it'll be safe. The game is very luck-based. Like I mentioned, sometimes you can just get really unlucky and be wiped off in a single turn, usually because of the Queen Awakens event. You can also get really lucky and cruise your way through much of the game if you find the life support systems early, roll well to avoid spawns, get your secret objective done and escape early. You're going to be sat there potentially for half of the game, perhaps an hour or so, probably taking on a more admin role. Speaking of which, there is a fair bit of admin to do and bits to remember that can trip up beginners, like losing oxygen at the end of every turn if life support is off. Not every round, that is, but every turn. So every time you've taken 2 actions, lose oxygen. Or you pass, lose oxygen. Remembering to advance the round marker, checking which intruders move each turn, because it isn't always all of them, and the orientation of the corridor on the event card tells you which move. While you can, of course, share out the bulk of admin at the start of the game, if someone's out early, it's best to just get them to handle it later on. The basic rules are easy, but there's a lot of fiddliness in the minutiae and quirks to remember. And personally, I found the Ludo Mentor app to be very helpful. It's free and it's basically an AI chatbot that you can ask a rules query to. It's trained only on the game rules, and everything it says will be referenced to a particular part of the rule book. So you can click on the reference, it'll highlight exactly which rule it's talking about. So I know people have a problem with AI generally, but in my experience, it's trustworthy and very intuitive, and it's been a real help for us. The only downside is that it might take about a minute to answer your question. One thing I will say is that despite being semi-cooperative, most experienced players will pick their private objective over the cooperative one unless they're forced to, either because it's become impossible or it's painfully obvious that the main co-op objective will be completed. Beginners will typically choose the co-op one, I think, coming from a mindset of, well, there might be one traitor in the group, when in reality, everyone might be a traitor. You can choose to play with only cooperative objectives, but I do think it's not as fun. You lose some of the magic if you do that. And honestly, if you only want pure co-op gameplay, I probably wouldn't recommend this game. So is this a must-buy? As a sci-fi alien dungeon crawler, it appeals on many narrative levels to me, and if you're in a similar position, I think it will be for you too. The semi-cooperative aspect that means you absolutely can just work together if you want, or screw everyone else and just do your own thing meaningfully, and yet not have to make that choice at the start of the game. You can just see how it goes. I love that. And on the flip side, the social deduction aspect of working out who is actually on your side and who is clearly in it for themselves, that's fun too. Aesthetically, it's gorgeous. The table presence it has is immense. It's not quite a whole day event like Twilight Imperium is, but it's more than just a game night. It's a shared experience that you'll be talking about the next time you meet up. The tense atmosphere when you're making a run for the lander and all seems hopeless, the sheer terror and the panic of the Queen appearing. In my last game, which you can still see set up here, me, a lowly janitor, turned out to be the MVP with a tiny nail gun that seemingly always did headshots. But I hung back and, well, did janitorial duties. Meanwhile, everyone else battled forward, summoned the Queen, missed every shot they fired, and mostly just ran around dying. By turn 8, 2 actual soldiers were already dead, and my wife, our superior commanding officer, wanted to complete the co-op objective to help me. She went deep into Section C and spent all her energy turning on the life support there. Meanwhile, my objective was actually for her to die. Authority issues, I guess. So I legged it back to the lander, turned off life support on the way, and here's the killer. I drilled a new section of the map for the Queen to conveniently get right at her. She could not believe the betrayal, but she somehow survived, repelled the Queen with her shotgun, snuck past the drone and made it into the escape pod with no oxygen left. 2 turns before the entire place was supposed to blow up anyway. We both survived, but she won the game because her objective was actually for our son, the UAV operator, to mysteriously die on the station, which he already had. Now, despite surviving unscathed, my objective was therefore a fail. She survived. And I don't want to imagine the absolute that I got once we were back at base. I lost, but it was incredible. All right, that's it from me. I hope I've managed to convey how incredibly cool and fun and tense Nemesis Retaliation is. If you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Otherwise, I'd love it if you could hit like, consider subscribing if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one.